Political organiser, agitator and broadcaster Charlie Kirk has been murdered today. Megyn Kelly is our friend in the United States and Charlie was her friend. She was literally on the air on her program on Sirius XM and live on YouTube when the news came to pass that his injuries became fatal, and she joins us now from the United States. I'm so sorry, Megyn, not just because of the event that has taken place, but because this has happened to a friend of yours as well.
Thank you, Paul. It's incomprehensible. The loss is so enormous for his family, of course, but for our country. And yeah, for me personally too. I can't quite get my arms around the fact that he's gone, that this larger than life figure who was a spectacular orator, who had his entire life and political future ahead of him, has been taken from us so violently in front of all of our eyes in the most disgusting and vile and jarring way possible, and that we're now living in a world without him. It's just, it hasn't sunk in yet.
Yeah, I've got to say, this must be how certain people felt in the 1960s about the towering political figures who were murdered then. And make no mistake, for Republicans, for conservatives, for young people around the world who were interested in what he had to say, Charlie Kirk is as big as any of those figures that were taken in the 1960s.
Yes. If the left does not comprehend how important he was to us on the right, they're going to find out. I mean, there's a reason that President Donald Trump was the first to comment that he lowered the flags to half staff, ordered them lowered in the country, that Barack Obama, Joe Biden have both issued statements, and good statements, no mealy-mouthed, anything in there, just good, solid statements. There's a reason for this 31-year-old kid living out of Arizona who in 2016 was Don Jr.'s bag boy, literally was carrying Don Jr.'s bags, and 10 years later, not even, had changed the world. It is not an overstatement to say that Charlie Kirk delivered the youth vote to Donald Trump almost single-handedly, something that no Republican had ever gotten. No one even bothered. Young people they don't vote Republican. They're idealists who vote Democrat until they grow up and realize what folly that is. And then they come over. But Charlie said, no, they can be reached. We're seeding an entire group of people that we don't need to seed, and put his money where his mouth was, devoted his entire organization to going where? To places Charlie never attended. He did not go to college. He never went to college. Life was his college. And yet he spent half of it going from college to college to college to try to convince the young people there to see the world the way he did, to try to understand that there was an education to be had on certain issues that they wouldn't get from CNN, that they couldn't get from Morning Joe, and to set the truth, the facts straight, and to give the truth on a man named Donald Trump who had been so bastardized by every pocket of the media that no young person, given the way they consume news, could ever really know or understand him or why he might be worth voting for. He delivered that election to Donald Trump, at least a large faction of it. Even Trump knows that. Trump doesn't comment on random acts of violence that often, Paul. The Charlie was important to him and to the movement, and we've just lost a giant today. I'm so sad for us. I'm so sad that I'm not going to be able to watch what he did next. I was just saying to Doug, my husband, I'm coming up on a birthday, and I'm older than Charlie by a lot. And I was like, gosh, when Charlie's my age, I'm going to be like 80 or close to 80. And I said, and Charlie will be president. I said, or he will have already served 2 terms as president. Like, he was on that trajectory. And just, on a personal note, he had just been on the show within the past month. I was going to join him on one of these college tours literally in 2 weeks in Virginia. And he was coming. I'm going on tour myself with my show, and he was coming to be with me this month in September. And it's just, we pulled our promos immediately because Charlie's in them and Charlie's dead. Charlie's gone. I'm in the just complete denial phase of grief. It just doesn't seem possible that someone that big and that important could be gone.
Because it's so fresh, I don't want to put you through having to come up with a reaction to the inevitable vile stuff that's been on the internet, the heartless, almost emotionless, cold stuff that's come out of places like MSNBC. But I want to focus in on a contributor on your program, a legendary American journalist who also knew Charlie Kirk, Mark Halperin, who talked about the need not to find something positive, but to turn towards not vengeance, but grace. How are you handling the emotions of all of this?
I'm torn because I like vengeance. I was never a prosecutor, but I went to law school because I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life. I'm fine with vengeance, and I hope to see it exacted on the perpetrator of this crime. But I have kids, and I need to worry about the country they're going to grow up in. And not for nothing, Paul, but my kids are very jarred by this. The kids over here loved Charlie. He was an important figure for them. They don't have a lot of heroes that they can look up to who they see in their spaces, who are all over TikTok trying to talk to them, who go like on that show Surrounded where everybody yells at you. And that's something kids like, and who shows up there because that's where they go. All my kids knew Charlie, not personally, but knew of Charlie, watched Charlie clips. Like he was in their algorithm. And I said, absolutely, take more of it. Like that's one algorithm I'll support. But they have to grow up in this country. Like, we don't feel like ourselves. We haven't felt like ourselves in a while. And I'm sorry to get political, but I'm just going to be honest. We haven't felt like ourselves since Barack Obama. I just think he was such a slick snake. He was this affable guy who was like wearing good suits and looked the part and sounded the part and dressed the part, but was so divisive in his messaging. The left, they look at you like when you say this, they don't know what you're talking about. It's like, because you don't pay attention to the other half of the country. You only pay attention to your absurd news sources, which spin and spin and spin to protect Democrats, especially if they're named Obama. He's the one who started to inject race where no one had been doing it. He's the one who started to use his pen and the phone to shove things down our throat that we didn't want. He's the one who shoved through an entitlement on our health care and our personal doctor visits that he promised he wouldn't mess with. And then he did, really hurting people, causing massive anger and open lies. He never missed an opportunity to twist the knife on the racial issue. He would do it subtly and in his own way, but it was very clear what he was doing. For the first time, we had a president who weighed in on legal cases before they'd played out. We never did that. That was a taboo that had never been crossed before him. And Donald Trump was the reason Barack Obama, reverse that. Barack Obama was the reason Donald Trump came about, that he was born as a political figure. They say Trump's divisive. He was the antidote. He was the answer to the divisiveness of Barack Obama. And we just haven't felt like ourselves for years now. I don't know if there's a settling. I don't know if there's if the hand holding, the rhetorical hand holding that could happen in a moment where we're all looking at this tragedy and lamenting it could last and change things. But I have to hope for it because, again, I have children who need to live here, who need to grow up here, who need to stay here.
I genuinely hate to ask this, but you were due, as you've mentioned, to go out on tour in the next few weeks. Not something as open as what happened today, where literally it was in the middle of a university square, but you and many other people in America don't just broadcast, but you go out there, you do shows, you are in front of hundreds and thousands of people at any one time. How are you feeling about your security and how you will have to interact for the next little while?
I mean, it's certainly going to be on my mind more now than it has been. My general approach to security is I have a team that worries about it, so I don't have to, because it's a very difficult way to go through your life, having to worry about that kind of thing. You kind of can't do what we do if you are actively worried about it. But I'll say this, I'll feel a lot better when they catch the shooter. I don't know, what does that guy's list look like? What does he have one? Is it a political motivation? Is he targeting people who say the things Charlie says? Because yeah, I say those same things. And my friends say those same things. You say those things. Like, of course, all of us in the public eye need to wonder what was the motivation here. Whatever it was, he should be executed. He should be tried, prosecuted, and when found guilty, put to death. But in my own life, yeah, we're going to have to take a look at what that looks like, Paul. I just announced this week, as I mentioned, that I'm going on tour. It's like the timing of this is very interesting. It's like I have never taken the show on tour before. I don't do a ton of live events. And, for the first time, I hadn't even considered, like, will there be magnetometers at the events? I hadn't even considered that. And now those are the kinds of questions I'm sure we're all going to have to ask.
Thanks for talking, Megyn. It was extraordinary to see you handle this in real time on your program. I'm so sorry that you lost your friend in Charlie Kirk. But from the other side of the world, this is a person who has changed the world, in my view, for a better place. And I'm so sorry that your mate's gone.
Love you too, Paul, and your audience. Thanks so much.